comes from. All your other theories, and this one theory explains them. So boom, we pop Tony. Okay, I kick your ass. He goes down in the helmet foam, the helmet air system decelerates his head and brain to an extent, but not enough. He hits the ground. He may have a coup injury at that point, or from the acceleration and deceleration of the brain, it may bounce back and hit opposite. He may have damage in front. The axons are stretched. Potassium leaves those damaged cells. At that point, calcium flows into the cell. Remember, calcium, Ca2+, it's a charged ion, it's a charged particle. It attracts more calcium. Now you've got big calcium sinks, big potholes filled with calcium where whole cells should be. Once that happens, magnesium leaves the cell. Okay, at this point, you're in a jam. At this point, you're not functioning correctly. Okay? Once this happens, there's an alteration in your glucose metabolism. Remember, Teddy, what's the only fuel the brain uses? Glucose. And that metabolism is altered. Roger can have the next slide. Okay? Glucose metabolism increases tremendously as soon as you're injured. There is a need for this to happen. And I think we just skipped a slide with the cough. Go back. Thank you. Okay? Remember, the chemical environment has just changed. We increase the glucose metabolism. Unfortunately, in any damaged area, remember your inflammatory response from exercise, phys, or from biology, or from physiology. Why don't we put heat on an injury that happened 2 minutes ago? Anybody? Okay? Remember what happens. Think about your house that we're going to do renovation on. Okay? We do all the demolition work. We stack up all the old sheetrock. We got shit laying everywhere. We got tools laying down. That's not the time to bring in the new sheetrock and your new beams. There's no place to put it. Stuff's going to be falling out the windows. That's your inflammatory response. We use ice. We don't want increased blood flow yet. We don't want an influx of nutrients, which are going to help to heal it, no doubt. Because right now, you've got to clear all the garbage out. You've got dead cells. You've got white cells attacking in there. You've got to move all of that out first, which is why we use ice and not heat. Same thing here. You need glucose. You need oxygen because you're not going to heal up. You've got brain damage, Ace. You've got to heal this. Unfortunately, your blood flow is reduced in the brain at the time of injury. Okay? You do not have your high-energy phosphates coming in. Teddy, what happens when you don't have high-energy phosphates? What do we have to move to if we don't have the oxygen? If you don't have oxygen.
You're into anaerobic.
We're going to go to anaerobic without oxygen. We're going to anaerobic glycolysis. Unfortunately, anaerobic glycolysis, lactates, lactic acid buildup, waste buildup. So at a time when you have damaged brain tissue, you need oxygen, you need glucose. You're getting less of it. Well, you still got to metabolize, you still got to get the system going. You go to anaerobic glycolysis. Once that happens, you accumulate lactate, lactic acid. This causes a drop in the pH. Now you have an acidic brain. Now it's an acidic situation up there. You have acidosis. That causes damage to the cellular membranes. Once that happens, the blood-brain barrier breaks down, and you got just a mass of stuff. That's when you have your brain swelling or edema. Okay? It's a sequence. It's a predictable sequence. Once you start that chemical cascade, it doesn't stop. And if you can't shut it down, if your body can't shut it down, the longer it goes on and the more severe it gets, not only the more damage you have, but the more vulnerable you will be for second impact syndrome. Everyone knows you get a concussion, you're more liable to have another concussion. You know that if you get a concussion, you're not supposed to go back on the field. Now, I got a concussion against Massapequa. I was put on the field against Burnham the next week. I got knocked out again. Believe me, it was the same concussion. I was not healed up. That is, these chemical responses were still taking place because this can last for days. If it can last for 10 days and it takes 2 weeks to get over, hey, they'll put you back on the field that week for practice. Well, you really shouldn't be there. Next slide, please. Okay, so you can have brain tissue damage. Boom! Remember, I jacked Tony up. I can hit him. Coup injury or contra coup injury. We have an alteration in the cell metabolism and function. You don't need a lot of structural damage for this to happen. All you need is tissue stretch. You don't need tissue tearing. Tissue stretch is enough to get a significant chemical change and significant damage. Those metabolic changes increase your vulnerability to having a second concussion. Any second or third or fourth concussion carries a greater risk than the first one because the chemical changes last longer and they do more damage. If I do a little bit of damage the first time and boom, come back 2 or 3 weeks later and get dinged again, now that metabolic alteration lasts longer. Now I'm in a jam. It happens the third time. I got a lot of cell damage. Now I'm a little bit stupid. Okay, and that's why guys with concussions who continue playing really get screwed up and get a lot more concussions. Okay, axonal stretch. The new research shows if the axons are stretched 2 to 4% of their normal size, you should have full recovery. If they're stretched beyond 10%, you will never be the same. They don't have to tear, they just have to stretch 10% or more. And you may not, you probably will not have full recovery. If you have axonal stretch, you will have axonal stretch at approximately 10,000 radians, okay, radians squared. Let me say it again, 10,000 radians squared, yes? Okay, a radian is 57.3 degrees. It's a circular measurement. Essentially, if I jack you up to a certain extent, you'll stretch. If I really jack you with double that, okay, you're going to tear. The stretching alone is enough to cause a tremendous amount of damage from the metabolic change. The tearing, you will not have full recovery. Now you've got some brain damage. Next one, please. Okay, and I asked a math major to explain that to me. He said, just think of a guy getting turned from here, banging his head on the ground, and a guy really getting jacked up and really getting smashed to the ground. But the bottom line is, the important thing is, you don't have to tear, you just have to stretch it. Okay? Again, we are more vulnerable following the concussion. You have drop in cerebral blood flow, increase the cranial pressure, loss of neurons if the damage is extensive enough metabolically, and certainly neuronal loss if they're destroyed just from getting crushed. You have an increased demand for glucose with a reduced ability due to reduced oxygen flow, reduced fuel flow. You cannot deliver it, but you have an increased demand to heal up. Okay? That's your head injury. Okay? The helmet can protect you against some of this. Training can protect you against some of this. Chris, do you have time, please? 9:14. Okay, 9:14. Good. We're actually on schedule. Let's take a 15-minute break. Then I want to talk about the exercise that we want to do for the neck area and just talk about helmets briefly because I like helmets. Okay, there's beer in the back. There's food in the back. Take some, please. Hey, Tony, I'm going to need you to get this now. Just hang out with the long men, hang out with the hit guys. I get along with everybody. My attitude is, you got a different philosophy from me. I got no problem. You enjoy your training. You love your training. You want your kids to train hard. Okay? You want everyone to get in there and just do the job. You got a good organized program. I'm happy. I had guys come over to me. This guy does power cleans. I said, okay, that's cool. This guy, he just does like one set to failure. Do you believe that? I said, yeah. We do a little bit of everything. As long as guys train hard, that's what I like. Okay, a lot of guys think, well, I do what I do, and I don't care what these guys do because they don't know anything. Okay, this is a great way to organize your program. This is just a great way to organize your program. I know I should be doing like one of those infomercials, but Joe, this is good stuff. And also, if you guys know Joe, and a lot of you do, okay, Joe's personality comes through in this, which I think is cool, Joe. Okay, that's good. Okay, we talked about head and neck injuries. Okay, why kids are getting hurt. Okay, I've been hurt so often, not just in the head and neck. It is very, very important topic to me. I've got 2 fractured vertebrae, I've had 9 concussions, I've been through this. And in retrospect, at the time, I was just pissed off. I'm hurt. What do you mean I can't lift? What do you mean I can't play? What's the problem? No, I'm not a real good player to start with, and now I got to sit? Are you serious? I think we can leave it on. Yeah, we'll try to leave it on. If everyone in the back can see the screen. Randy, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it's a topic that's important to me. I understand it's not as important to everyone else. But if you're working in the strength field, you have to influence your coaches relative to your strength training program. You need to have them understand the mechanisms of injury. Okay, let's talk about doing something about it. Okay, let's talk about preventing it. Next slide, one. Okay, the purpose of exercise. Okay, we want to transfer and dissipate force. Does the result of exercise do that? The results, like I said, it's unclear. It's not proven yet. However, training the neck and upper back area, whether it helps to dissipate force or not, and I will go on record and say, I think it does. I know that at 180 pounds, with like a 16.5-inch neck, I can dissipate a certain amount of force. I know when I weighed 232 and my neck was 18.5, boy, I did a lot better job using my head as a battering ram. And did not get the same kind of headaches and get my neck twisted around than when it was 16.5 inches. So I believe it does dissipate force, but even if it doesn't, there are definite proven benefits to making the neck area stronger relative to preventing injury on the field. Can I have the next one, Roger? Thank you. Okay, remember, quick review. You have a cervical lordosis. You drop your head 30 degrees or more. 30 degrees is nothing. You straighten the normal curve of the neck. You can't dissipate force properly. Boom! You wind up with injury because now, instead of attenuating that force as a unit, you're doing it in individual segments. And it's too much force for those individual discs and vertebrae to dissipate. Okay? On the field, what happens, you get into that oh shit position. What happened? Ted, come on over here. Come light me up. Okay? Here we go. I've got the ball. I tuck it, and there's Teddy coming across the field, and I go, oh, sugar. Okay? And my first instinct is to do what? I drop my head because he's just about to unload on me. Okay? A defensive reaction. It's reflexive and defensive. Okay? I take the pass, and here's Teddy getting ready to hit me, and as soon as I get up, and I drop my head, and now I've got that axial loading. Okay? Or I want to unload on Teddy. And because I'm not so smart, oh boy, here it comes. He's vulnerable. And I'm going to put a lick on him, and my head's down because I want to just light his ass up. Okay? But my head is down. And just walking through this, I cannot tell you how many hundreds of times I did that. And everyone who played football in here did that. Either protecting themselves or, okay, and I'm thinking of Joe Kent at Wake Forest doing that little pull in Bill Dooley's offense and going, oh, a guy Ken Leistner size. Oh, and boom! Because that's what you reflexively do. Okay, and that's how the injuries occur. Thank you, Ted. Okay, so it's that oh, sugar position, oh boy, it's reflexive, or it may be that you have general fatigue. Now understand that most of these injuries occur later in the game, okay, when players may have been generally tired, or the head and neck area was tired. The muscles supporting the head and neck were fatigued, so they drop into flexion. Sometimes it's laziness or a lack of focus. How many times when you have a running back, and I'll talk from that perspective, that was my position, where, okay, you're not carrying the ball. Okay, you got a guy carrying the ball, this is what you get. Okay, it's 3rd and 2 and we need this. Remember USC, tailback, right? And that's what you get. Okay, now, here's the deal, Ace. We know you're the star runner. pick up the defensive end here. We're going to do a little pass play. Okay, and that's what you get. It's a lack of focus. They wind up not protecting themselves properly. Okay? If you exercise the neck and upper back properly, if you fall into an improper position, either due to fatigue or lack of focus, it's easier to literally snap back and get back into extension to restore that normal lordosis, that normal curve. So instead of being in here because I'm tired, now I can keep my eyes up. Now I can keep my head up when I make the tackle or the block. So strengthening that area will allow the player to resume or regain the proper head and neck position. Okay? It allows for quicker reaction. If I'm in the wrong position, if I take that pass and I'm here, okay, I can come up a lot faster. Or if I'm preparing to deliver a blow, instead of dropping my head, I can more quickly come up and alter my body position. Why do you think strength coaches run and drill and lift the hell out of their guys? Or in Heather's case, out of their ladies. They do that so they can maintain proper technique even when they are fatigued. And how many times do you say, we don't want you to practice, we want you to practice perfectly, so that when you're fatigued, you're still doing everything correctly. Also, if you're tired, you do not practice properly. And we all know that you will go onto automatic pilot and do in a game what you do in practice. So again, strengthening the area allows you to regain position quicker and maintain that proper position. Okay? Also, we talk about forestalling fatigue. The less space you have between your helmet and your shoulder pads, between your head and neck and your shoulder pads, the safer it is. We want to build the tissue. We want to make this cylinder that's your neck as big as possible. In part because it closes that gap, and now, I don't want to go over that cord. Come on, Tony. Okay? Now, if Tony gets hit, instead of getting laterally flexed to here, okay, his shoulder is down because his neck is like sticking out like here, okay, now you get about that much movement. That's a lot safer than cranking his head to here. You like that, huh? Okay, there's a bondage place we'll talk about later. All right? Can I have the next one, please? And again, rather than build that up with a shoulder pad, you want to build the neck tissue. Okay, the only disadvantage in having a big neck, okay, there's an advantage to having a big neck. And you know, at 155 pounds and being old, I don't have a big neck anymore. I used to like to, I thought it was a real advantage to walk into parties. And just getting into a party was an achievement for me. And you walk in and you'd have that big neck and someone would say, you look like a little fat guy. Do you play football? And of course you'd stand there like this. And if you remember when you took your football photo, you know, everyone did one of these. Okay, you got that neck, everyone's smiling, all right, we all did it. You got your neck out there. I thought I looked pretty rugged. You know, and the ladies would go, you must play football. You know, Molly, would you get me a drink? That's usually what I got. Okay? The only disadvantage is that you may lose some range of motion. Okay? And there's some that have a philosophy, we want to be as flexible as possible. Well, in this area, you may not want to be as flexible as possible. The only disadvantage in having a decrease in the range of motion is if it decreases the probability of maintaining or regaining that proper contact position. If that loss of the range of motion for any reason makes it more probable that you're going to duck down and go into flexion, then you don't want it. But there is every advantage to getting that neck as big and strong as possible. Does anybody know where the term red dog comes from? Okay, in the 50s, if you blitzed the quarterback, that was called a red dog. Okay, there was a football player named Red Dog Ettinger, and he lives in Tennessee. And Red Dog Ettinger was an excellent football player, but one day he just kept running after the quarterback. That was not done in single wing days. Okay, even in the early days of the T formation, they didn't do that. So when you crossed the line of scrimmage, which was very, very unique, it was called a red dog, after Red Dog Ettinger. and later became a blitz. But it was initially called, for us oldies, it was called a red dog. We were going to red dog on this play. Okay, Red Dog Ettinger came up with a shoulder pad system that prevented the helmet and the head from going into extension. Remember, the theory was you're going to rip everything if you're forcefully put into extension. Well, unfortunately, Red Dog Ettinger's collar with the belts on it, did you ever see that? Ted is shaking his head, he's seen it. And it was like a shoulder pad helmet one-piece combination actually put players into a position where they're much more vulnerable and more likely to get injured. All the injuries we just talked about. In which case he was very upset when that was pointed out to him and he withdrew it from the market. But it was being marketed to high schools throughout the South at that time with a big collar, the straps that would hold the helmet in place so it didn't get jerked back. But what it was doing was putting them at about 30 degrees of flexion, which is exactly the point where you begin to get into that dangerous territory. Okay, can I have the next one, please? Okay, we talk about the cervical spine musculature. And again, think about the SCM, okay, the cords of muscle here. Okay, the intrinsic muscles, okay, the bottom line is, if you deadlift, and you deadlift heavily, you're going to build the muscles of the upper back and the lower back. You're going to build your butt, you're going to build muscles of the hips and thighs. Okay, you're going to build a lot of things that you aren't isolating as such. The splenius group, capitis group, longus capitis, they are going to grow if you stimulate the neck. We're not looking to isolate them. Okay? We're talking about the upper back, primarily the trapezius muscles. And please, think about three distinct origins, three distinctive points of insertion. Just don't think this. And I don't want to hear that, I don't want my traps to get bigger because it decreases the apparent width of my shoulders. Okay, we're not into that stuff here. You're in the wrong clinic. Okay? We get that from bodybuilders. We don't want big traps because my shoulders don't look as big. Okay, we want to pack the muscle on not just here, but, Mike, stand up for a minute, face me. Okay? We want muscle here. Those traps are going to come here. They're going to come down to the lumbar aponeurosis and the iliac spine. We want all of this built. That's going to help dissipate force. It's going to help keep that head and neck in proper position. The traps are not just here. Okay? We want the levator scapula. We want the spine erector. We want those spinal erectors right down to the butt, right down to the iliac crest develop. Because again, even though it's not proven, I'll keep coming back to that. If we are going to put force here or here, I want it dissipating through the cervical musculature, through the upper back, through the spinal erectors down to the butt. You've got to get rid of the force. You must get rid of the force. That's physics. We're not going to, it's not going to disappear. We've got to dissipate it and move it out of the body without causing damage. So it's going to be transferred in a good situation through the spinal erectors also. Thank you. So we need to build those areas. What I wanted in the 60s, how many guys remember the 60s? Okay, sorry, it's us. Yeah, these big flowery shirts. Okay, now, believe it or not, I wasn't into that stuff. I was into my flannel shirts and overalls. Okay, but you get these big ballooning sleeves and stuff. And I'm thinking, you know, this is my chance to look like I lift weights. I got to get me one of those. And of course, in the Inwood neighborhood, where Joe's from, it was very stylish to wear, you know, big Cuban heels and the tight pants and a big billowy shirt. And this was just to go to the gas station. All right? And this was like the deal. I thought I'd try it, but I already looked like a little fat guy at 232 when I was dressed. So that wasn't going to make it. I wanted to have a line of shirts for guys who lifted weights. I'm not talking about bodybuilding. I'm not talking about playing around. Guys who lifted weights and women who lifted weights like my wife who understood what it was about. Now, we want the muscle in the hips and thighs. We want a big butt. I don't want to hear about you don't want your butt bigger. We want your butt out to here in muscle. We want thighs that quiver and shake when you walk because all that shit is just popping around. Okay, not jiggling, I mean popping. I want to have a line of shirts that had a cellophane cutout in the back where you could see the spinal erectors. And because I was serious about it, I had a guy look at me like I had 3 heads. And he says, and you're going to sell these. I said, this can work. I said, the guys I know will take them down to York. We're going to sell a ton of them. I'll take them to every powerlifting contest I end up. I said, you know how many shirts we can sell with these cellophane windows to show the erectors? Because that shows you lift weights. Well, it's still on the drawing board, but it was a good idea. Okay? That's where you want the muscle. That's where you're going to dissipate the force. That's where you're going to generate force. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Let's talk about some of the exercises. I'm going to say good things and not so good things. Okay, a 4-way neck machine. Okay, flexion, bilateral, lateral extension, okay, and extension. We do not do flexion on a 4-way neck machine. I think you need a neck machine. If you train athletes, male or female, you need to have a neck machine. If you're real good at doing manuals and you are very, very conscientious, you can make them work. Okay? If you have your, some guys are coached so well, and again, I know Chris's program, I know Joe's program, I know the Michigan State program, okay? I know these intimately. They can do manuals. If I do manual on Mike, okay, if Randy Burning does a manual on Mike, I know there's control of the head. I know the movement's not going to be jerky. I know it's going to be taken through the appropriate range of motion. If you have your teammates do each other sometimes, this is what you get. Yeah, that's good. 4 out of 5. Okay, good. Next slide. Okay? 1, they don't benefit. Number 2, they're at risk for injury. Okay? I believe you need a 4-way neck in the facility. The problem with a 4-way neck machine is, and Ike is a chiropractor also. You can raise your hand because you can ask him about this later. In the cervical spine, we do not have one axis of rotation. On any machine, you have an axis of rotation. Hopefully, you line it up with the body part so that the axis of rotation of the machine is in line with the axis of rotation of the body part. And we can do that pretty easily in working the bicep, for example. In the neck, however, when you go through a range of motion in flexion and into extension, the axis of rotation, the actual fulcrum around which you're creating torque, moves as the neck flexes or extends. If we start in this position, as we start to go into extension, it's here, now it's here, as one vertebrae rotates on the other, now it's here, now it's here. Okay, you do not have a stationary axis of rotation. So no one has yet designed and built a machine for the neck, a 4-way neck machine, that really does what it's supposed to do. But yet, I will tell you to get one because you can get the neck bigger and stronger. We, and meaning a lot of the guys who train under me who now coach, like Frank Savino, like Mike Dieguez, do not go into flexion. We do not go forward. Remember, the SCM, the sternocleidomastoid, your primary flexors, they also get work during rotation of the head or lateral flexion of the head. It is my contention that the risk-benefit ratio is such that you should not use flexion. Now, a lot of guys disagree with that. I'm offering my opinion. We have found in many years of experience, starting with the original Nautilus 4-way neck back in '74, that if you go into flexion, that very often you get facet inflammation. The joints between one vertebrae and the other get irritated very easily. That does not happen in extension or in lateral flexion to the right or lateral flexion to the left. Thus, we do not do flexion. I can also tell you that with the information that I've learned in the past few years about cervical axial loading, I don't know that I'm comfortable training a group of muscles that might pull you into that potentially dangerous position and pull you into 30 degrees of flexion or more. Now remember, I'm a guy who thinks everyone should train. If you can breathe, we can find something for you to do. I don't care if you're an old lady. Hey, my mother 83 or 82?
82.
My mother's 82. My mother trains with my wife a couple of days a week. And, you know, I try to light my mother up. I have a lot of unresolved conflict. Right? You know, I said, let's go, man. Put a little weight on there. Move that butt. Okay? I think my daughter is 14. My daughter bypassed on sports this year. She's in a new Catholic school where the academic requirements are very, very strict.